There are powers on Earth too hidden to be seen, and conspiracies too vast to comprehend. For years, the world has seen fact distorted, reality manipulated, and the truth concealed. Join the Pierre Sebac podcast to uncover the real meanings behind ancient aliens and their symbolism.
Hi, this is Pierre Sebac, unlocking the keys to the mysteries. Now today I'm going to be talking about a topic which I discuss in my book Holographic Culture, and this is the idea of an extraterrestrial controlled government. Now this idea is very ancient, but is also an idea which has been derided throughout modern ufology. But when you actually begin to discuss and when you begin to analyse and deconstruct the scaphological tradition, then the extraterrestrial controlled governments and the idea behind this idea, which is the Pyro Society, begins to make a lot more sense. So it's contended in my book that the Watchers, they're not just passively monitoring the world, but in fact they have planted the human race on the Earth, and they've altered also our evolutionary trajectory. And the planting of the human is connected into the angelic tradition, or the seraphim-kerubim dialectic. The dialectic in this respect is the knowledge between human and non-human angels, or the seraphim, which are serpents, the non-human angels, and then the cherubim, which are the proto-human angels. So they've planted mankind on the Earth, which is known as the second creation, or panspermia within the Greek tradition. Now I'm arguing, therefore, that if you look at within ufology, the argument is that the aliens are here, or should I say that they're flying around in the sky, but they don't really interact with mankind that much. But essentially, with those, if you like, rare exceptions, that they just keep themselves to themselves. Now, within my book Holographic Culture, I put forward the argument that this is actually a very problematic argument, and particularly when you look at the occult symbolism within the scaphological tradition. So I think that ufologists really need to look at and analyse the idea that if the aliens are here, then maybe they do have a vested interest in mankind, and therefore maybe they are either a part of the government, or that they've intercepted the government, or that somehow they have shaped or formed the government. And I think that these are legitimate arguments. It's a very mature discussion, it's a sober discussion which is required, because exopolitics again is going back to a very ancient tradition, the tradition between angels and men, which is this Pyro Society, or the seraphim-kerubim dialectic, this dialectic between human and non-human angels. So I would argue then the contingent of extraterrestrials and the extraterrestrial controlled governments, it really does, when we begin to break it down, the question is very simple. The question rests upon the idea, do aliens just fly around in the sky? Yeah, do they just avoid interaction for the most part? Or, conversely, are the aliens principal players on the planet? Now, I think if we're objective, we could say that either scenario is quite possible, but if we dig deeper and look into the occult tradition, and we begin to critically examine the question and look at the religious traditions of the Elohim, then I would say to you that the angels, or the aliens, because the two terminologies are interchangeable, that they are actively participating and shaping the political framework of society. Again, I would say that they have little compunction in terms of intervening in human history, and this is especially so when it suits their purposes. Again, there is this relationship between the governments and the upper and the lower house, the upper house representing the Elohim or the high ones, and then you've got the lower house, which is the commons. And again, within the Hebrew, there is, if you like, this connection between Shilton, a government, which relates to Shaitan, which is an adversary. In the original usage, the word Shaitan could also refer to a political party, because the political parties are adversarial. They are linked in or aligned to factions which are aligned to the fallen angels, the Shaitan, which are the fallen angels. And again, we see this relationship between Malach, an angel, and Melech, a king. Within the Greek traditions, you have a relationship between Anax, a prince, which is a diptych-paronomasia on the word Anak, which are the giants. The giants are this grafted bloodline, which are combined together, and feeds into the idea of this synthesis. The synthesis would be, if you like, the division between the cherubim and the seraphim, which are human and non-human angels. Within the war in heaven, this in the Greek mythology was described as the titanomachy, and then the coming together of heaven and earth and the resolution of this conflict through a grafted bloodline or a mediator, which would be a king or a prince. Now, the king or the prince is symbolized as a pilot or a navigator of the ship of state. The ship of state is an extension of the angelic ship or vessel which is moored in heaven. So the connotation is of this of the birthing of a ship, which links into the birthing of this angelic bloodline, which is deemed to be grafted or tied to heaven. So when we go back then to the argument of whether the Elohim intervene, when we look at the biblical and mythological traditions, when we look at the idea that the Elohim flooded the earth and destroyed the earth and replanted mankind upon the earth, we see that the Elohim are active players in terms of evolution and in terms of interventions. So I would argue that UFO researchers, rather than saying that to say that aliens are somehow intervening and in human history, and that this is very conspiratorial, I think that many ufologists need to start looking at the bigger picture. They need to start analysing occult symbolism to get a much more clearer picture. Part of this occult symbolism is the scaphological tradition, the study of angelic vessels within the ancient mythology and religious traditions. Again, the scaphological tradition is classified, classes and naval fleet, that which is secret or hidden away. So we need to therefore begin to look at the larger picture, the geopolitical reality, and this relates to the presence of the aliens. This relates also to the dialectic, the seraphim-kerubim dialectic, and the dialectic between mankind and the division between the different factions of men, both politically, racially, ethnically, and these divisions and how these divisions play out. In particular, within the symbolism between the division of heaven and earth, or the division between the seraphim and the cherubim, which are the principal players in which these divisions on the earth are enacted out. And so that's basically a short deconstruction of extraterrestrial controlled governments, or the parallel society, which I refer to this as, which is based upon the seraphim-kerubim dialectic. If you've enjoyed the video, then please give me a thumbs up. It's great talking once again. Thank you very much. This is Pierre Sabak. Let's try and make this a better world. Thank you.